President Trump has just approved a plan to send Sinaloa cartel bosses and CJNG hitmen to Mexico's ultra-hell prison. But this place is not just a prison. It's a nightmare built for the absolute worst criminals on earth. I ended up getting into maximum security. And the riot popped off right 2 weeks. When I was in there was 14 people killed. The main boss was decapitated. And they were playing basketball and in with this. That's the kind of place we're talking about. A prison so brutal that cartel assassins aren't begging for freedom. They're begging to be transferred somewhere else. And yet, even in a place like this, some of these guys still find a way to call the shots and take out their rivals in and outside of the prison. So now the question is it the right move to keep sending more cartel leaders to a prison this violent? Could this finally crush their power or just fuel even more bloodshed inside and outside the walls? I used to have an amazing life with my family, my kids, my wife, a girlfriend, and I had plenty of money. Things were good. The misuse here is terrible. The living conditions here is terrible. I'm a combat veteran. I'm a United States Marine. I've served in the Iraqi War. I'm decorated. Over there, I'm a hero. Over here, I'm a villain. I can't even make a phone call to my family to let them know where I'm at. We only get 2 hours of sun a week. If that, sometimes they cut it short, or sometimes somebody will do something stupid on the yard and get the yard messed up for the rest of us. So we'll get like half an hour or an hour if somebody messes up. After that, I got into maximum security. And in maximum security, I think the worst scenario that I saw in a prison, right? 14 people died. As soon as I go down to the first floor, there's an individual that we used to call numbers, cause he was all tattered from his face, all tattered from his head. He had his neck open and his insides were out, and he was just laying on the steps, dead, bro, dead. La Mesa wasn't always the concrete hell hole it is today. In fact, just 20 years ago, this place was practically a 5-star resort for cartel leaders. Back then, the inmates called it El Pedo, which translates to the little town. And that nickname wasn't a joke. Imagine walking through what you think is a regular prison, only to find fully functioning shops, restaurants, and even brothel operating right inside the walls. Dolores Sanchez lived through both versions of La Mesa, and when she describes the old days, it sounds almost unbelievable. We used to have computers, we had restaurants, we all had good money. Now, there's none of that. No cash. Think about that for a second. While regular citizens were struggling to make ends meet, these convicted criminals were literally living it up behind bars. But here's where it gets really crazy. The Mexican government wasn't just turning a blind eye to all this. They had completely lost control. Inmates were walking around freely, hiring staff for their businesses and basically treating the place like their personal resort. And the guards, they were getting paid by the cartels to look the other way. Because when you've got cartel money flowing through a system, pretty much anything becomes possible. But everything changed in 2002 when the Mexican government finally said enough is enough. And guess what they did? They brought in bulldozers, tore down all the inmate-run shops and restaurants, and completely gutted the entire place. It was like they were declaring war on their own prison system. And that's when Cesar Daniel Ramirez Acabdo stepped in as the new director. Since 2014, this guy's been running La Mesa with a level of control that would honestly make dictators jealous. He didn't just want to run a prison. He wanted to create something that would completely break anyone who ended up there. So, what did he build instead? Well, he created the complete opposite of that. Cartel paradise. Concrete boxes barely bigger than your bedroom closet where the most dangerous cartel bosses now spend their days. We're talking about guys like Francisco, who used to torture people for fun on the outside, and now he can't even get a bar of soap to bathe without begging for it. I didn't know what it was like to go hungry as I could always afford to buy everything. Here in prison, you don't tend to get enough, and it's usually awful. Today, Francisco is locked in the most horrific part of the prison called Section 6. This is the brand new ultra-isolation wing specially built for the most dangerous cartel bosses, and the conditions inside here are designed to suffocate them. Wake up every day in a room with no windows, no fresh air, and walls that are literally covered in mold. They don't even get any toiletries, and the water barely trickles from rusty pipes for just a few hours each day. The psychological damage from all this is so severe that some inmates are actually begging to be moved to other prisons. Yes, not released. Just move somewhere else. Anywhere else. Everything is dirty. Just sitting on the toilet is Horrendous. I've had a foot infection in the past. The food is bad and unhygienic. And it's freaking hot. That was Abraham Chavez Orozco. He was arrested at age 22 for drug trafficking. He's now 3 years into a 5-year sentence. And his mother has been pleading with authorities to transfer him somewhere safer, somewhere less psychologically destructive. Now the crazy thing is that this place is not only meant for Mexican cartel killers and narrow traffickers. Some American citizens are in here as well, like this guy who claims he's a U.S. Marine. The misuse here is terrible. The living conditions here is terrible. I'm a combat veteran. I'm a United States Marine. I've served in the Iraqi War. I'm decorated over there. Here I'm a hero. Over here I'm a villain. I can't even make a phone call to my family to let them know where I'm at. He shares this cell with 6 other U.S. residents, including this guy called Taylor Elliott Howard. I was being accused of stealing a car, armed robbery of a car. So he said I had 2 guns, AR-15 9mm. So he gave me 9 years for that. Their situation here is even worse because none of them here speak Spanish and there are no interpreters in the prison. So they're not just isolated. Physically, they are completely cut off from any form of communication. But perhaps the worst part is the complete lack of medical care. When inmates get sick, they're basically left to suffer or die. Since I've been here, from the conditions of the medical conditions, here, there's been 9 people on this tier who have just died from being sick and stuff like that. That's not including the whole jail, just the people on this tier on this floor right here from the living conditions, from the getting sick and not getting medical attention. Taylor now makes jewelry out of whatever scraps he can find just to trade for basic things like soap and toilet paper. But here is the irony of this whole situation. None of these extreme control measures is working, and that's why it is potentially dangerous for the United States to send any cartel leaders to any Mexican prison, especially the maximum security prison where this former Sinaloa hitman witnessed the most brutal prison massacre in Mexican history. They call it the Castle. So Ali Gonzalez was transferred to this prison after he killed 2 people in his previous prison for intimidating and extorting other inmates. When he first arrived, the cartel leaders wanted to hear his own side of the story, and Ali told him straight up, when you get the other power to control, it's not to step on people, right? Because people are going to get tired of you stepping and they're going to rise up. It's to help people. The cartel leaders actually understood him and left him alone. But just 2 weeks into his stay, all hell broke loose inside the prison, and I was going to court when I hear out of nowhere just start hearing noises and people running, into my cellmate threw me an actual shank, and he's like, come on, let's go. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, after the people that are in charge, the general population had finally reached their breaking point after years of abuse and extortion. But what began as an uprising quickly spiraled into a massacre, and the main target was the cartel boss inside the prison. We get to the other section of maximum security. The main boss he locked himself in a cell, and he had a big old machete like this, and he locked himself with a lock using burning bed sheets soaked in alcohol. They smoked the boss out of his cell, then dragged him out and eliminated him alongside 14 of his men. But what happened was not just brutal, it was barbaric. And he starts going at his head. He hit off, and he's like, come on, Smiley, let's go play basketball. And we go to the basketball court, and he throws the head toward the loop and just go claw. Now, after 14 brutal murders and a cartel boss getting decapitated, what do you think happened to the inmates responsible? Mass punishment, transfers to worse facilities, government crackdowns. Well, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. The Mexican government quietly sent forensics teams to collect the bodies and restored normal operations within days. The inmates negotiated directly with authorities, telling them to take your trash and leave them alone. The government actually listened and backed down completely. The only people who protested were the guards themselves, demanding higher pay if they had to deal with this nightmare. What Ali witnessed reveals the core problem with Mexico's prison system. Even in maximum security, cartels maintain control through fear and violence. After everything died down, the riot organizers actually approached Ali for recruitment. Once he got out, they needed soldiers for outside operations. That's how the system really works. It's not breaking cartel networks, it's strengthening them. So that raises the critical Question about the rationality of the United States sending cartel members to Mexican prisons. If maximum security facilities can't contain this level of violence, if cartel bosses continue running operations from behind bars, and if the government backs down every time things get bloody, then what exactly is Trump accomplishing by sending more of these dangerous criminals into a system that's already been captured by the very people it's supposed to contain? Please feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth videos like this.